You have felt it, even if you have never let yourself put it into words. That small hesitation in your child's voice when you mention that you would like to come and see them. That half-second pause before they answer, the slight change in tone, the enthusiasm that does not quite reach the words. You told yourself you were imagining it. You told yourself they were simply tired, simply busy, that you were being too sensitive, an old person reading too much into nothing. But some quiet part of you knew, because words carry more than their meaning, and a mother or a father who has loved a child their whole life can hear beneath the sentence the thing the sentence is trying not to say. Tonight, I am going to give you 7 of those sentences. 7 things your grown children may say that are quietly telling you something. And I am going to help you hear what they truly mean and know when the wisest, most dignified thing you can do is to lovingly stay where you are. Let me be very clear about the spirit of this before we begin, because it would be easy to hear it wrong. I am not telling you that your children do not love you. I am not telling you to punish them, to withdraw in anger, to keep a cold score of their failures. And I am certainly not telling you that a busy child is a bad child, because life in these years is genuinely full and hard, and sometimes now is simply not a good time and nothing more. What I am telling you is something the old traditions understood deeply. There is a great difference between love that welcomes your presence and mere tolerance that endures it, and an elder who cannot tell the two apart will spend their precious final years forcing themselves into rooms where they are not truly wanted, slowly trading their dignity for scraps of contact. Your presence is a gift, and a gift offered where it is not welcomed does not become more valuable by being pushed harder. It only becomes a burden to them and a humiliation to you. So this teaching is not about pride. It is about the quiet self-respect that a long and generous life has earned, and about reading truth in words so that you give your presence where it is genuinely a blessing and withhold it with love where it is not. The first sentence to listen for is the one that never changes. Now really isn't a good time. Once, this means nothing at all. Life is busy. But listen for the pattern, because a single now is not a good time is honest, while a now is not a good time that has been the answer to every attempt for months or for years is no longer about timing. It has become the polite and permanent shape of a door being held closed. When every proposed visit meets the same soft wall, the message is not about this week. It is about your place in their life, and you must have the courage to hear it. Do not keep knocking on a door that has been quietly, consistently closed, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Stop offering the visit for a while. Let the silence speak and see whether they come looking for you, when you stop chasing. Love that only ever flows in one direction, always you reaching and never them, is trying to tell you something. And dignity means finally listening. The second is the sentence that turns your presence into an intrusion. You should have called first. You can't just show up like that. Now there is a version of this that is only about convenience, and that is fair. But listen to how it is said and how often. Because when your appearing at your child's door is treated as a violation, as an ambush, as something that requires advance permission and paperwork, something has shifted that you need to see clearly. The home you were once always welcome in has become a place you may only enter by appointment, like a stranger, like a salesman. A child who genuinely wants you in their life makes room for you, imperfectly, warmly, even when you arrive unannounced. A child for whom your presence has become an inconvenience will build fences of procedure and call it reasonable. Feel the difference. And if you find that you are now a guest requiring clearance in the life of a person you once carried in your arms, do not force your way past the fence. Step back and grieve honestly and protect your dignity by not begging entry where you were once simply home. The third is the sentence spoken at the door, before you have even set down your bag. So how long are you planning to stay? There are warm ways to ask this, and there are cold ways, and your heart knows the difference the instant you hear it. When the very first words upon your arrival are about your departure, when you are met not with joy, but with a clock, you have been told, gently but unmistakably, that you are a guest on a schedule and not a beloved presence whose staying is a gift. A child glad to see you asks how you are, asks about your journey, asks 100 warm and useless questions before they ever think of when you will leave. The one for whom your visit is an obligation to be managed begins at the threshold to count the hours until it is over. If you feel that clock start ticking the moment you arrive, you have your answer, and you are allowed to shorten your own stay, to protect your heart, and to spend your visit and your love where the welcome is real. Let me pause here, because these first three cut deeply, and if you have heard one of them in a voice you love, I know the ache that is rising in you right now. That ache is not weakness, it is the size of your love made visible. If even one of these sentences has echoed in your memory tonight in a familiar voice, write one word below in the comments. Heard, not in bitterness, only as an honest admission to yourself. And take some comfort in seeing beneath you how many other parents carry this same quiet sorrow, because you are far from alone, though the world rarely lets anyone speak of it. Now to the remaining four, which are subtler and in some ways sting even more. The fourth is the sentence that quietly edits you. Please don't bring up blank while you're here. Don't mention that to my husband. Don't say anything about it in front of the children. There are times this is reasonable, a request for simple tact. But when it grows into a long list of forbidden subjects, when you find that you must shrink and censor and manage yourself to be allowed at the table, understand what is happening. You are being welcomed not as yourself, but as a carefully edited version of yourself, acceptable only so long as you disappear the parts of you that are inconvenient. To be loved is to be welcome whole. To be merely tolerated is to be welcome only in pieces, only in the shape that causes no trouble. You did not survive a long life to spend your final years walking on eggshells in your own child's home, performing a smaller, quieter, more agreeable version of yourself for the privilege of a visit. You are allowed to decline to shrink. And if your whole self is not welcome somewhere, you may lovingly choose to be your whole self elsewhere. The fifth is the sentence that always postpones. We'll come and visit you instead. On its own, this is lovely, and sometimes it is completely sincere. But watch what follows it, because there is a particular version of this promise that is never ever kept. The visit to you is always coming, always next month, always after this one busy season ends, and somehow that season never ends and the visit never arrives. This is one of the gentlest ways a door is held closed, because it wears the face of intention, of goodwill, of a plan, and so you keep waiting, keep hoping, keep giving the benefit of the doubt to a promise that has already been broken a dozen times. At some point, dignity requires you to stop counting on the visit that never comes, and to build a life full enough of other things, other people, other joys, that you are no longer sitting by a window waiting for a car that both of you know is not going to turn into the drive. The sixth is the sentence that welcomes you only as help. Oh, good, while you're here, can you watch the kids? Can you help with? We really need you to. Now hear me carefully, because being useful to your family is a joy, and to be needed is a beautiful thing, and I would never tell you to withhold your help from people you love. But there is a difference you must be able to feel between a child who wants you and also welcomes your help, and a child who only ever summons you when there is a task, who is warm at the moment of need and distant the rest of the time, for whom your visits have quietly become a labor arrangement dressed up as family time. If you notice that you are invited only when there is work to be done, and that the invitations vanish the moment the work does, you have been shown your role, and it is not the role of a cherished parent, but of unpaid help. You may still choose to give, but give with your eyes open, and do not mistake being needed for being loved, because in these years you deserve at last to be wanted for your presence and not only for your usefulness. And the seventh, the one that stings the most, is the sentence that braces for you as a problem. Just don't start. Don't make it a thing. Please, let's not have a repeat of last time. However these words are dressed, they carry a single message: that your arrival is anticipated not with warmth but with dread, that you have become, in your child's mind, a difficulty to be managed, a storm to be weathered, an ordeal to get through. Sometimes, and I say this gently, there is truth in it, and part of the wise elder's work is to look honestly at whether you have made yourself hard to be near, whether old patterns of criticism or complaint or control have taught your children to brace for you. We will return to that because it matters. But whatever its cause, to be met at every visit with a flinch, to know that your own child steadies themselves before opening the door to you, is a grief almost too heavy to name. And it is not a grief you must keep walking into again and again. You are allowed to stay away from a table where your presence is dreaded, and to do the quiet inner work, if it is needed, at a loving distance. Now hear the turn that holds this whole teaching together, because without it, these 7 sentences could harden into something bitter, and bitterness would only prove the flinch right. To hear these words clearly is not to stop loving your children, and it is certainly not to cut them from your heart. The Buddha taught that we must see reality as it is, not as we wish it were, and that clear seeing, even when it wounds, is the beginning of peace. Stepping back from a door that is closed is not revenge. It is the refusal to keep bruising yourself against it. And there is a deep wisdom hidden in the stepping back, because a presence that is constantly forced becomes a presence that is resented, while a presence that is freely given and freely withheld regains its value. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for them and for yourself is to stop pushing, to let the distance breathe, to become peaceful and whole and content in your own life, and to let your children come toward you in their own time, drawn by the peace they feel in you, rather than pushed away by the need they feel from you. And there is one more thing I must say, the hardest and the most freeing of all. Before you close this teaching, look honestly, without cruelty toward yourself, at whether any of these doors were closed for a reason. It is possible to be a parent who loves deeply and still, without meaning to, be difficult to be near, to have carried habits of criticism, of guilt, of control, of reopening old wounds that taught your children to brace. If any part of that is true, this is not a moment for shame, but for one of the great graces available to the old, the chance to change, even now, even late, to become softer, to let go of the need to be right, to fix, to comment, to control. Many an elder who quietly did this inner work found the closed doors of their family opening again on their own, not because they demanded it, but because they became at last someone their children no longer needed to brace for. Guard your dignity, yes, but guard also your own heart against becoming the very thing that shut the door. I knew a father who could not understand why his daughter had grown so distant, why every visit had become tense, why he heard that flinch in her voice each time he proposed to come. He was certain he had done nothing, that she had simply grown cold, and for a long time, wounded, he kept pushing, kept appearing, kept insisting on his right as her father to be welcomed. And each forced visit made the distance wider. It was only when, exhausted and heartbroken, he finally stopped pushing and turned instead to quieting his own life that he began to see honestly the parts of himself that had taught her to brace, the constant corrections, the commentary on how she raised her children, the way he could never simply visit without also judging. He did not confront her. He did not demand. He simply, slowly, became a gentler man, and he stopped chasing, and he let her be. And nearly a year later, it was she who called him, not because he had won, but because he had finally become someone she no longer needed to defend herself against. The door had opened on its own the moment he stopped throwing himself against it. So if some of these sentences have found you tonight, do not despair and do not harden. Hold two things at once, as the wise always must. Protect your dignity by refusing to force your presence where it is not welcomed, and keep your heart open and soft so that when the door does swing back, and often it does, you are not too bitter to walk through it. Spend your love where it is received. Do the inner work where it is needed, and trust that a parent at peace within themselves is the most magnetic force there is, quietly drawing back in time much of what seemed lost. If this reached you tonight, leave one word below: peace, and carry this with you when you go. Your presence is precious, and your dignity is sacred, and neither should ever be spent begging at a door. Give your love freely, protect your heart wisely, and let those who cannot yet see your worth find their own way back to it in their own time. You have loved enough to have earned that peace.